I escaped the Skin Man's town. Now something is living under my skin. I haven't eaten solid food in 3 days. I'm living on protein shakes. I suck through a straw, and every time I do, I'm terrified I'll feel the scrape of metal. I keep my jaw clenched. I have to, because I'm afraid if I open my mouth too wide, the stitches will tear. You think you know the rules. You read the wikis, the archived GeoCities pages, the dead link forums dedicated to things that live in the blank spots on the map. The number one rule is always the same, repeated like a fucking prayer. If you hear whispers of the Flensed Man, you don't go alone. I went alone, not because I'm some tough guy. I'm a librarian, for Christ's sake. I just didn't believe. You spend enough time sorting through digital ghost stories. You learn to spot the performance, the artifice, the desperate reach for a good yarn. The Flensed Man felt like the ultimate campfire story, a collection of unrelated tragedies stitched together with a spooky name. Then I found the file. It wasn't on any modern forum. It was a ghost, a dead node on an old dial-up board I found through a chain of web rings I thought had dissolved into bitrot 20 years ago. The site was just a black page with a single downloadable file. Tawny 80. The image itself was mostly corrupted data, a waterfall of green and gray pixels. But in the top left corner you could just make out the corner of a map, a state road, a river, and a town name half-eaten by the digital decay. Temper, the real message, was buried in the metadata. EXIF data, the digital fingerprint left by the camera or scanner. 6 words. They sing from the inside out. It didn't say Flensed Man. It didn't have to. The legend always follows a pattern, a town that gets erased. A town that gets erased. An unnatural silence. And the reports of a figure, or figures, seen walking without their skin. I've mapped the sightings for years. A farmhouse in rural Ohio, a logging camp in Oregon, all dead ends. But this felt different. Not a story, a warning. I had to go. I know. I fucking know how that sounds. But I'm methodical. I found an old geological survey from the 70s. There it was, Temperance, West Virginia. A tiny pocket of civilization deep in the Monongahela National Forest, serviced by a single road that was decommissioned in the late 90s. Modern maps showed nothing, a green void. I left a sealed envelope with my neighbor, a retired cop named Javi. Inside was a printed map, the coordinates, and a note. If you don't hear from me by Monday morning, this is where I was. Don't come looking for me. Just send the file to the state police. I even sent a text to my sister, going off-grid for the weekend to chase a ghost story. If I don't text you by Sunday night, assume I got eaten by a bear. She just sent back a thumbs-up emoji. I found the old access road on Saturday, just past noon. It wasn't on any GPS, just a rust-colored gash in the trees where the asphalt gave way to dirt and ruin. The air was heavy, cold. Mid-October, but it felt like the bones of winter were already setting in. The first mile was just a hike. The second, something changed. The woods went quiet. Not just birdsong, everything. The rustle of leaves under my boots, the whisper of wind in the canopy. It all just stopped. The silence pressed in, so thick I could feel it in my sinuses. I saw a doe standing maybe 20 yards off the path. It wasn't moving, just staring at me. Its coat was slick and healthy, but its eyes were wrong. They weren't black or brown. They were milky, opaque, like twin cataracts, and they didn't blink, not once. It just watched me pass. I started walking faster. It took another half hour before I realized the ground beneath my feet had changed. I looked down. Cracked concrete, webbed with moss. A sidewalk. I looked up, and the town of Temperance was there, emerging from the trees like a rotten memory. Skeletal houses with caved-in roofs. A gas station with pumps that looked like petrified skeletons. A child's tricycle, its front wheel rusted solid into the soil. But there was no graffiti, no beer cans, no sign that anyone had been here since the day it died. It wasn't abandoned, it was preserved. I pulled out my phone to film, narrating under my breath just to make a sound. Any sound. October 21st, 2:47 p.m. Arrived at Temperance. Town is intact. Disturbingly so. It feels like everyone just evaporated. I stopped. A flicker of movement in the window of a long, low building at the edge of town. A cannery, judging by the faded logo on the brick. The movement was fast. A sliver of motion, there and gone. I told myself it was a trick of the light. I knew it wasn't. The cannery was maybe 200 feet away, a big, ugly brick building with shattered windows like vacant eyes. A huge metal loading door hung slightly ajar, a dark slash in the decaying wall. I pushed it open. The groan of rusted metal was the loudest thing I'd heard in an hour, and it felt like a gunshot. The smell hit me first. Iron. Coppery and sharp, mixed with the sickly sweet scent of rot. My phone's flashlight cut a nervous beam through the cavernous dark. It was a processing floor. Conveyor belts, vats, and hanging from the ceiling, chains. Dozens of them with heavy meat hooks on the end. My light caught something, followed a chain up from the floor, past a pair of bare feet, past raw red legs. I raised the beam higher. There were 6 of them, hanging from the hooks, piercing their backs, human-shaped, but they were flayed, skinned from head to toe, leaving nothing but the glistening crimson architecture of muscle and sinew. My breath hitched. I took a step back, fumbling with my phone, my brain screaming at me to run, to just fucking run. Then one of them moved, its head tilted. A slow, wet, mechanical turn. It wasn't looking at me. It was looking at the light. The beam landed on its face. There were no eyes, just dark hollows in the skull. There was no nose. And where its mouth should have been, there was nothing. Just a smooth, seamless expanse of muscle, stretched tight. And then the hum started. It wasn't a vocal sound. It was deeper. A low, resonant vibration that I felt in the concrete floor and up through the soles of my boots. It came from the thing's chest cavity, a sound of pure, unending agony trying to tear its way out of a prison of flesh. That's when I ran. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The sound was trapped in my throat. I burst out of the cannery and just picked a direction, back through the silent, dead streets. But the geography of the town felt wrong, hostile. I ran down a street lined with identical, doorless houses, all of them gaping black voids. I took a turn to get back to the sidewalk I'd come in on, but it ended in a solid brick wall that hadn't been there before. I felt like I was being digested. I risked a glance over my shoulder. It was following. Not the things from the cannery, something else. It was lurching out of the shadows between 2 houses. It had the rough shape of a man, tall and gaunt, but it moved wrong. Its limbs bent at angles that weren't human. Its skin was pale and tight, like parchment stretched over a frame. But the face, that was the worst part. Its mouth was a huge, ragged grin, stitched shut with thick, black thread. And it was trying to smile wider, the stitches straining, pulling the corners of its ruined lips up toward its ears. Muffled, frantic gasps pushed against the threads. I scrambled through a backyard, through a hedge of thorns that tore a long, deep gash in my forearm. I didn't feel it. I just ran. I ran until the pavement turned to dirt. I ran until the silence broke and the sound of my own ragged breathing came roaring back into the world. I saw my car through the trees and nearly collapsed with relief. I didn't stop driving until the sun came up. Found a cheap motel off the highway and stood under the scalding water of the shower for an hour, scrubbing at my skin until it was raw, but I couldn't get the smell of iron and rot out of my nose. I burned my clothes and the boots in a barrel behind the building. I haven't been home. I keep moving. State to state. Motel to motel. And here's the part you're not going to believe. The part that I'm still trying to deny. The cut on my arm from the thorns, it isn't healing right. Yesterday I was cleaning it when I saw something. A tiny speck of red caught in a scab. I thought it was a piece of thread from my jacket. I grabbed a pair of tweezers to pull it out. It was coarse, wiry. I pulled. It didn't stop. An inch of it slid out of my skin, then 2, then 6. It was a long, red thread, unnaturally strong, coming from deep inside the wound. And as I pulled, I felt a corresponding tug deep in my chest, a tightening in my throat, right at my larynx. I dropped the tweezers. I can still feel it in there, the rest of it, coiled up inside me. I haven't tried to speak above a whisper since then. I haven't opened my mouth wide enough to eat. I'm too scared of what I'll find. I'm scared of the stitches. They say the legend of the Flensed Man is about what he takes from you. Your skin. Your life. They're wrong. It's about what he puts back inside. Sometimes when the room is quiet and I'm holding my breath, I can hear it. Faintly. A low hum starting in my own chest.